Truediltom, hi. I recently watched one of your videos on Friedrich Nietzsche's slave morality, and I was impressed by the video. I liked it, but I just wanted to, give you a counter theory to sort of get my view out there for you, because I think you could appreciate it. I don't think Nietzsche's view has the explanatory power you think it does to put the left's motivations and morality into perspective. Yeah. I think that a closer look at some of the more modern takes of evolutionary psychology would point to the fact that egalitarianism is innate to human beings and is probably developed by evolution in order to help us navigate within a tribal structure. It's easy for me to imagine the use of egalitarian sentiments within a primitive, small-scale tribal society. You would have an emotional stake in what happens to all the members of the tribe, and you would prevent infighting and civil war within the tribe by making sure that no one gets too much power and no group develops that feels completely left out. So I actually think that egalitarianism, which is, I would say egalitarianism is one of the biggest motivations of the left. Egalitarianism is actually a method developed by natural selection and evolution to help us avoid envy, to avoid conflict and infighting within a group. And I think Nietzsche's sort of theory that all of this is from some kind of Freudian pathos of envy, even though I know he was operating before Freud, he influenced Freud. So Freud has more to learn from Nietzsche than Nietzsche has anything to learn from Freud. But I don't think the theory works. I don't think Nietzsche's anthropology works as a whole. I think Nietzsche lived in Europe, and he was from Prussia, spent a lot of time in Italy, but I think he would have had a more complete theory and maybe even abandoned his sort of radical individualist life is only justified as an artistic expression sort of view, which I think is a silly romantic view of life, if there were more chimps. If Nietzsche would have lived in Africa, or if he would have lived later and had access to the work of the illustrious Jane Goodall, he would have realized that life, human beings push to flourish in life is not just an individualistic enterprise. It is a tribal exercise. Human beings gain strength in numbers, and Nietzsche was such a radical individualist. He hated the herd, and I don't think that really. I don't think you can. If you take evolutionary psychology seriously, if you look at our closest primate ancestors like chimps, if there's a big alpha chimp that, there's always an alpha chimp, but if one of these alpha chimps gets too, ornery and he thinks he's too much hot shit, the lower male chimps, second in command, third in command, fourth in command, they will, team up together and beat him down, rip his testicles off, and murder him if he becomes too tyrannical. So even in our primate ancestors, there is this sort of egalitarian impulse to regulate who is above who, because we're so tribal and we're so competitive that we are very hierarchical. But if we're too competitive, that competitiveness seems to destabilize a tribe. And I think egalitarianism is a development, because once we're not just family members, once we're in an extended family, and even beyond that, into a tribe or in a village, and then in a city, no, a lot of people that aren't really related to each other, and that familial kinship bond isn't there. So you're going to need to develop this extra thing that makes sure that everyone is emotionally invested in everyone else, and that no one that predatory expressions of life do not become too out of control and destabilize the society. Where, like for instance, in South America, the big problem with South America is they don't have the rule of law because everyone is predatory, and even people that would like to live in a society where they don't have to lock their doors and they don't have to bribe the police and they don't have to pay off politicians just to live a normal life, they have to, and they feel like they have to do it to other people because if they don't, they're going to be a chump. They're going to be a sucker. So, and that leads to political instability, chaos. It leads to shit like Venezuela. Venezuela is a symptom of the breakdown of Latin America. And what do we see in Latin America as a response to this destabilization? Massive calls for egalitarianism. Egalitarianism is an imperfect evolutionary tool to avoid the destabilization of a society, because human beings cannot thrive as individuals. Nietzsche was he was probably shy, and he was a super genius, but his theory is unscientific at this point, and slave morality is an unscientific theory that, in the face of the evidence of evolutionary psychology and primatology, is proven false.